Wrote the book. It came out in January 2012. Right after that, I had a webinar where anybody in the world could sign in and hear my spiel for the first time. So it's like, it's presenting your baby to the world. So I present my baby to the world on this webinar, and I'm going through, I'm thinking it's going great. I open it up for questions, and I didn't get crickets. Something worse, a question I couldn't answer. And the gentleman said, and I will never forget, he said, well, Susan, if these matrix structures are so challenging, they actually need a book for people to read, to work their way through it, why do organizations use them in the first place? Oh, shoot, I forgot that part. I don't know. Why do we? I had lost track of it myself, which oftentimes, for those of you that have been in a matrix for a while, you do lose track of it. Wait, why do we do this? Why do we have all these intersections and dotteds and solids and all of that? Since then, thank goodness, I have done my homework and I have an answer for you. And the answer comes in the form of analogy. So if you've read my book, you know I love analogies. So this analogy is all about traffic. It probably has to do with the fact that I grew up on a dirt road, finished school, and moved to downtown Chicago. So traffic fascinates me. It's still 25 years later, I look at Chicago traffic, I'm like, where are all these people going? How could we all be on the road at the exact same time? So it's traffic-based. So why a matrix? Here's my answer. Traditional organizations, organizations that are young, in their infancy, maybe have a single product or service or a single location, operate like a lane on an expressway. So in that lane is everything they need to run that organization, to run that business, to run that hospital, whatever it is. All the resources, all the infrastructure needed to do that. And then as they grow, they add a lane, right? So at a hospital, at a specialty, at a surgery center, whatever that is, add a product, a service, or an organization, a location, whatever that is, you build successive lanes. And in those lanes, again, all the resources, all the infrastructure you need to run that part of the organization. So as the organization grows and continues to add lanes, they realize that lane mentality, that lane model, has some pretty significant limitations. And the first limitation is that in order to operate in the lane, you've got to replicate what I call an army of specialists, right? So the organizations that I work with don't make widgets that are sold in one county of the US, right? We're talking complex stuff. I don't need to tell you that. I mean, we are talking about specialties, and not just clinical specialties, but every single person in this room has a knowledge specialty, right? No matter what function you're with, what area of the organization you're with, you have a specialty. And when you have such a complex service that you provide in multiple locations, complex, right? So in order to deal with that complexity, we have to specialize, because no one person can possibly hold all that knowledge. So we have to specialize. And so we become this army of specialists. To think that we can have this army of specialists dedicated to every single lane is a little naive, right? It's an incredibly expensive way to run a business. You're not sharing knowledge. There's some pretty significant drawbacks to that. So first thing they realize is very expensive, not a great way to really leverage our resources. The second thing organizations realize is that when you organize in lanes, people think in lanes, right? So I'm on a project, I'm making a decision, I'm resolving an issue. I'm doing that with what's right for my lane. I don't look to the left or to the right to see how what I do impacts anybody else. I do what's right for my lane and my lane only. And so people realize, organizations realize that nobody's really looking out for the greater organization to make sure that our decisions are consistent, that where we need to standardize, we do standardize, to make sure that our strategies aren't contradicting each other, to make sure that we're leveraging how we market, how we brand, all of those things. So nobody's looking out for the bigger picture, and so that's just not sustainable, okay? So very expensive, no enterprise-wide thinking when you're in those lanes. And then the final piece, and I think for you this is the most significant, is that your patients' needs don't fall into lanes, right? They don't neatly fall into one lane. My father was just recently hospitalized, and he was toggling all kinds of lanes, right? He had internists in his hospital room, he had pulmonology, he had cardiology, he had everybody in there swarming him, a whole matrix of caregivers, right? So whether I'm talking to providers or I'm talking to manufacturers or I'm talking to consultants or whatever, our patients, clients, customer needs don't fall neatly in our organizational lanes.